Hi, thanks for joining. Just give it a couple of minutes for some more people to turn up. Hope you enjoy the session today. We're going to be talking about writing effective alt text. Let me get my screen up. Okay, and off we go. Hi, so my name's Grant Broom. I'm one of the founders of Dig Inclusion, a web accessibility company based in the UK. I'm also the accessibility director at Nile HQ, which is a company that provides services relating to change and change within organizations. So if you've got challenges relating to changes within your organization, Nile is the company that you can go to. Dig Inclusion is a web accessibility company that's been running since 2012. And we provide key services for accessibility like audits and consultancy and training. So I'm doing a session today on writing effective alt text. So let's just start off by talking about what alt text is. So alt text is a way of providing alternative text for images, and this is really important mainly for people with disabilities, people who may be blind or people with visual impairments who can't see an image very well. And they need to know what's inside that image for all sorts of different reasons. So I'll give you some examples of some alt text. So I'm going to use my dog Billy today. He's going to help out. He's not around at the moment. I live on the edge of a woodland, so he's probably out chasing rabbits or something. But this is Billy. He's a German Shepherd Labradoodle. In this picture, he is a tiny 10-week-old ball of black fluff with big ears and big eyes sitting on the ground outside, waiting for his first ever walk. Now, what I've just done there is described Billy. Billy is in this image, and I've just given it a description of what we can see in the picture. It's quite a good description of what's there. I could have just as easily have just written puppy. Now, puppy also describes what's in the image, but it doesn't give an awful lot of detail. So you can imagine that if you couldn't see this image, if you had visual impairment or if you were blind, then a picture of puppy could mean all sorts of different things, whereas the previous description where I describe the type of dog that Billy is, I describe how old he is, what he's doing, that's far more engaging. So one of the first things to bear in mind with alternative text is that really we want to be describing what's in the image, engaging the audience as much as we can with maybe generate that kind of emotive language that'll give us a better impression of who Billy is. Now, it's also worth bearing in mind that either of those descriptions are fine. They're both valid. They would both, in a sense, pass through web accessibility checking. But what I really want to get to the root of here is providing a more engaging experience for people who can't see the image. I'll give you another example. So in this picture, Billy is 2 years old. He's lying in a muddy puddle with his tennis ball. He looks really pleased with himself. So this is a picture I took recently. We were out playing in a park and I was throwing the ball for Billy. It was a hot day and he found a muddy puddle to lie in, which is one of his favorite things. And I could have also described this same image as dog. And again, it's not as engaging. It doesn't provide much information about what's in the picture. It just tells us that this animal is a dog as opposed to a cat. It doesn't really provide much engagement. Again, in different contexts, both of these alternative texts for these images are both valid. It's just that one of them is a bit more engaging than the other one. And really, if we're talking about providing a good user experience and we're talking about everybody, not just sighted people or people without visual impairments, then we really want to engage people as much as possible and provide them with just a better experience. And this is what I want to get to with writing effective alt text, is making sure that people understand that people who are blind or visually impaired, who can't see the image or can't see the image very well, and might be using a screen reader. So that's probably something I should have brought up in the beginning. So people who have visual impairments, they'll use a piece of software called a screen reader, and this screen reader will go to a web page or web application, and it will read the alternative text for the image, and this is built into the code, and we can add alternative text very easily in most programs. I'll show you a little bit about that later. So when we write in those alt text descriptions in those programs or in those websites or applications, then we need to provide a description. So what I'm trying to get across here is that writing a more engaging description helps to engage the visitors better if they can't see. And we want to provide an equivalent experience as much as possible to people who are visually impaired. So I'm just going to show you how we add alt text, and I'm going to use LinkedIn as an example because presumably you've come here from LinkedIn. It's a LinkedIn live session. And this is an image that we'll come back a little bit later. It's an image of a chart, but I just wanted to show you the dialogue for adding alt text, and we can see that it's very clear when you add the alt text for the image where you should be adding it. So it's in this text box down in the bottom right of this image, and the alt text prompt is, how would you describe this image? And that's a very plain way of telling us how we should be adding alt text to the image. And in this in this input, we should be describing this image. Now, I put quite a complicated image here, and there's something else I want to talk about later in the presentation about this type of image. But this just helps us to understand, when we use a package and we have to add alt text, usually there's a box here that's alongside an image, and it gives us the opportunity to add that in. So what that text entry box then will do is put some code into the web page, and this code just looks like this. It's part of an image tag. We won't go into this. I don't want this to be very technical, but it provides an image tag with an alt attribute that has the text in it. And when the screen reader or assistive technology comes across this image, it reads out this text instead. So it goes into the code and it reads this out for the screen reader. So I want to talk about different types of images. So we don't always describe the image that we put into the application in exactly the same way. Sometimes we want to describe the image, sometimes we want to do a couple of other things. So I'm just going to talk about content images first off. So content image is the type of image where you'll have some content in it. That's kind of self-explanatory, isn't it? But essentially, we've put an image on the screen, and we want to describe what's on it so that people who can't see it still understand why the image is there or what the image is trying to tell us. So in this image, we're describing the agile development process, and for an alternative text for this, we would say maybe diagram of the agile development process with the different steps or the different steps in the agile cycle of analyze, plan, design, build, test, review, and launch. That's it. That's all we need to describe. We don't need to describe that it's a circle or the visual appearance of image, that it's blue or anything like that. It doesn't really matter. We just for an image like this, we just want to get to the crux of what the agile development process is and what the diagram is telling us. So for something like this, we don't need to go into too much detail. We want to provide this information as succinctly as possible with just the right level of detail. So this is unlike an image maybe of Billy that we saw earlier, where we're trying to maybe be a little bit more romantic with our language, where it serves a different purpose. I'm trying to tell you who Billy is. I'm trying to give you an impression of the type of dog he is, how quirky he is, a bit goofy. But this is a different type of image. We're just trying to get over plain information. So bear in mind why your image is there. Why did you put it on the page in the first place? What is the key information that you're trying to get across? So this is an image of the of another article that I've put into LinkedIn, and this is a picture of my dog Billy. He's a German Shepherd cross doing a strange grin, and that's the alt text that I chose to use for that. Now, in this particular case, the on LinkedIn articles, for the moment, the image and the caption, which is the text that sits beneath the image, are the same thing, and it's useful to be aware of how the alternative text that we enter for images is used. So in this particular case, not only is the alt text hidden behind the image, but it's presented below the image as well. And in this particular case, there's a repetition of text, which isn't great. I mean, LinkedIn articles should really have a separate alternative text for the image and provide you a way of providing a different text for captions beneath. That's how it's used in this specific instance. And it's always worth knowing or finding out when you're adding alt text for images in whatever content management system or social media platform that you're using, that you're aware of what happens to that alt text when it goes out. And you might have to ask people about this, or if you're proficient with screen readers or accessibility testing, you can test this for yourself. Now, when we've got something like lots of text on an image, and text in images is another accessibility issue or principle that we can talk about. Sometimes you don't have much choice but to use text in images. So, for example, this is again an image that was used on LinkedIn. There's no real way of making this image without putting the text into the image, rather than overlaying it on top or making it directly screen readable. So when you're faced with a situation like this, you need to describe the image and provide the text in it. So for the alt text for something like this, you'd say a picture of Grant and Billy presenting how to get alt text right, a 30-minute webinar, Wednesday, 28th of August, 10:30 a.m. BST, and that should be your alt text, and maybe include the sponsor links of Nile, Dig Inclusion, and Hugger in there as well. And the reason why you'd want to do that is because there's key information in there that might not be present in the text below it, and for people to be able to understand what the image is, what it's about, etc., then you need to provide that in the alternative text for the image. So an alternative text for an image like this that said how to get alt text right webinar, that wouldn't be sufficient because it doesn't give you the time, the date, and maybe some of the other little interesting features, like the fact that I'm doing a presentation with my dog, who is not here. I wish he was. Anyway, so functional images. So we treat functional images differently. So a functional image is an image that you can interact with. It's not a static image. We're not really trying to describe the image itself. We need to describe what it does or where it goes. So I'll give you a really good example here. This is the Amazon basket image, and what we don't want to describe here is we don't want to use an alt text of, I don't know, what is this, a conceptual trolley with a zero in it. That would describe maybe what this trolley or basket icon is trying to do, but really this is the alt text for something like this should be your basket, 0 items, something very simple like that. So when we describe images that have more of a function, we want to someone who's going to be pressing or interacting with this basket, we want them to know what it's going to do when we press it. So it could be something like go to basket, 0 items. Another good example, you'd be probably familiar with this icon. It's the YouTube play icon. So when we click on this, we go into play a video. So the alternative text for this type of button should be play. It shouldn't be, and I have seen this or something like it, white circle on in a red rectangle. Now that is a perfect description of what we see here, but that's not what it does. What it's doing is it's being it's a play button. It's very clearly a play button, and we click on this and we play a video. So the alt text for this just simply needs to be play. So what about decorative images? So decorative images are the types of things that we would put onto a website, and we don't really intend people to interact with them. They don't really provide any content, and we don't feel like we really need to describe them. So sometimes we'll get something like a banner image, which is just colors and it's just serving as a background for some text on top. Or maybe we could use like a woodland background because we're trying to convey a sense of greenery or something like that. But we don't maybe know where the woods are, or we're not really particularly trying to describe the woodland. We just use it as a visual, as a background. And these sorts of decorative images don't really necessarily need to be described. So here's an example. Crikey, I've been using this one for years, but this is a really good example. This was from an old Virgin Atlantic website from some work that we were doing with them. And I thought this was a really good example because you could go into detail describing this. And for context, this was just used as a background for people entering the process of booking a flight. So there would have been text over the top of this. So you could describe this as a picture with a hat and a scarf on a chair next to a table on a beach. Now that isn't particularly useful. It's not a good alt text. It's not the intent of the website to be selling hats and scarves or chairs and tables. It is selling holidays, so I suppose if you really wanted to put an alt text in there, you could try and evoke the sense of being on on holiday on a sunny beach with the sun shining, and that would maybe want to make you go and book a flight, and that would be valid to be able to do that. But in a lot of cases, an image like this is just used as a background, and the intent is for people to interact with the foreground content. So you could leave something like this blank. But it does kind of come down to a house style. So some agencies who are very good at accessibility, they would always want to use an alt text to describe this image, and they would use some emotive text to help engage people who are visually impaired, and try to give them the same sense of happy holidays as you would for people who can see the image. But it's not necessary in all cases, and very often you could just regard this as decorative and you could leave it blank. There's a couple of specific examples of decorative images that I need to make clear as well. So this is the Nature Scott website. We've done some work with them, and the site is excellent. It achieves a very high level of accessibility. I would urge anybody to go to this website to look at it and see it as an example of good accessibility. If you're looking for something like that, it's excellent. And one of the things that I'd like to point out is that we've got a series of links with images on them, and this is very common. Some people call them tiles. So instead of having a separate image and then a heading and text, all of this information is wrapped up into a single link. So if you go to one of these images using a screen reader, you would get the alternative text description for the image, followed by the heading, followed by the text. Now that's fine, and it's a good way of doing things. It gives people the option of clicking anywhere in that tile to be able to go to the next page. But one thing to bear in mind is that that image description is going to get read first. Now, in all of these images are treated as decorative images, and you might wonder why. So, for example, we've got a first image here, and it's a man sitting on a bicycle talking to someone in a motorized wheelchair. The backdrop is very beautiful. It looks like a lake or maybe the seaside, and some mountains and some old buildings in the background. It's a lovely image, but there's a problem describing this. And it's something that we discussed with Nature Scott when we were doing their audit. And that's originally they put a lot of detail in here describing, these types of images. And also even going as far as saying who the photographer was, and I think maybe even the focal length or some camera details, something like that, and the date, which was great. I love that level of detail, but it's not right for this particular situation where you've got an image and really using it as part of a link, and to make sure that the description of that image doesn't interfere with the key link information, which is enjoying the outdoors, or NNRs and natural reserves, visit our nature reserves, which is the key information for the link. We don't want a bunch of text before that a screen reader will listen to before hearing enjoying the outdoors. So for one, they'd have to listen to the whole text before they hear the link, and two, enjoying the outdoors may get lost in the speech of the screen reader, and they won't really catch what the link is all about. So when you're using images in links like this, never describe them. Always just give them an empty alt attribute. Don't describe them at all. And that's the safest way to go with it. Similarly, I'm using LinkedIn again as an example for this. Sorry, LinkedIn. Although I say sorry, they're doing things quite well. But again, this is an image of my dog Billy, and it's part of a link that takes us to LinkedIn articles accessibility review that I wrote out last week. So if anyone's interested actually on the accessibility of LinkedIn articles, then go to my page and you can read this article. In summary, it's actually quite good. There are a few things that you need to bear in mind when writing articles using LinkedIn articles. And you can find out about those on the page. But anyway, this picture of Billy here, which is him grinning. He does this silly grin when you hold up the ball not too far from his face, and he does this silly grin thing. It's not appropriate to describe that in this image. Again, this needs to be blank, and LinkedIn makes sure that this image is blank, because they know that the key information is the LinkedIn articles accessibility review text, and that the image that's used there isn't relevant to where that link goes. So the key thing here is functional images. They're not content image. We don't describe the content. Decorative images. We don't describe the content. We just leave things blank and let the text do the work. And there's no need to describe them. So the next set of images that I want to talk about is complex images. So these are like charts and diagrams. So let me give you an example first off. So this is the example that I used earlier. This is from High Charts. And if anyone is doing a lot of charts on their website, I highly recommend you go to High Charts, because they have the best system for accessibility that you can think of. Now, let me just try something here. I've got to share this tab instead. So this is a link to the High Charts website where I got this image from. And the key thing here is that this is a illustration of the most common desktop screen readers. So as I said before, a screen reader is a piece of software that takes the text that's on the screen or behind an image and reads that out to screen readers. It does a lot more than that. But this is what the chart does on the HighCharts website. And we can see that there's a really nice text display underneath it, which just summarizes all of the information. And this is absolutely great. But some people might want a little bit more detail than this. And the great thing about HighCharts is that you can click this hamburger menu at the top and you can view a data table. So I'll just click on that option and you can see all of those data points here displayed on the table. And the reason why this is so good is that a person using a screen reader might have difficulty using this type of chart or understanding the information on this chart. But when it comes to reading out tables, screen readers and tables work very, very well indeed, as long as that table is marked up properly and it's accessible. So I would say that if you're using charts or graphs like this, complex images, always provide a data table of the information or a detailed summary. Sometimes the information in the data table isn't that relevant, or I mean, at least all the data points. So for something like a global warming chart, where it shows essentially it's just showing a sharp increase in the levels of CO2 and climate change in the past 100 years. The key information there is that we've had a large increase in climate change over the past 100 years, and that correlates with different things. You wouldn't want to include a table for all of the data points necessarily, because that's just a lot of information, and really you're just trying to get the information across that, climate change has happened over this period of time, or a sharp increase in change. Something like this, there's not so many data points, and this can be easily conveyed using a table, and this table information is quite useful. So yeah, I would definitely go with a table for this type of information. So this is another complex image, and this is an infographic, and this contains an awful lot of text in it, but none of this text is directly accessible. By that I mean it can't be read by a screen reader. You couldn't highlight it and copy it and paste it. It's not very accessible in the sense that if you had a visual impairment, you'd really struggle with this type of information. So if you're using this type of information as an infographic, and infographics are great, they suit people with a wide range of cognitive disabilities, and sometimes this information is easier to digest like this. That's fine, but make sure that you provide all of this information in a web page using maybe some images with good alt text, and maybe some tables instead of some of these graphs and charts. So key takeaways here, excuse the extra bullet point. Why is the image there? So if the image is there to provide content, make sure that you describe that image content in text. If it's meant to be functional, remember that you always describe the function, like play button, or if it's a link, you describe the link to the other page, and you're not describing the appearance of the image. It does happen. We catch it in testing quite a lot. So remember, when you've got a functional image, you're describing what it does and not how it looks. Decorative images can be left blank. But if you do feel that you can use those images as an opportunity to convey something important to people who are blind, visually impaired, who use a screen reader, then feel free to do that, and you won't be penalised for doing that. But if you are in doubt about an image, you're not quite sure. Oh, there's Billy. He's barking at some rabbits, no doubt. If in doubt, just add an alt text. It's the better outcome. It's better to have an alt text there than to not have it there. And that's it. We're at the end of the session. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments below, or you can message me directly and I can get back to you. Thank you so much for joining the session. For accessibility training audits and testing, please drop me a line on grant@diginclusion.com or go to www.diginclusion.com.
Thank you, Billy.
Just want to say also that we're working with a range of clients at the moment that include Legal & General, Premier League, Tesco Bank, NHS, Moonpig, HM Revenue and Customs and Samaritans. We've got a great portfolio of clients and we'd really like to have you on board. Okay, so that's the end of the session. Just want to remind you that things work better when they work for everyone. Thank you very much for coming and I look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thanks very much.